Third person perspective. I want you to think to yourself, do you tend to get motivated, inspired by an internal drive where you just always have this fire lit inside of you? Or do you typically get inspired and motivated by external things, by people, things, quotes? You hear certain music, maybe a show. And I would say the answer for most people, unless you're David Goggins, would be third person perspective, would be something externally motivates you, it lights a fire under your ass, more so than that internal drive. And the reason why I'm bringing this up and I feel it's so powerful is because if you can harness this third person perspective and turn your life into that, you'll be able to have this recurring nonstop motivation on a daily basis. Because motivation, trying to rely on motivation on a day-to-day basis when you don't have this perspective, up and down emotional roller coaster. But when you can shift your perspective and you can adopt this third person perspective, it seriously can alter the projection of your life. It is game changing, and I think more people should hear it out and try it out. So it being the third person perspective. So for example, person A is looking at person B. Person B is motivated. They go to the gym all the time. They eat the right things. They go to bed early. They're working on their business. They're doing all the right things. They're not fapping anymore. They're not eating junk food. They talk to their parents. And person A is like, damn, person B is freaking dope. Person B is a person that I look up to, a person that I want to be. And person A gets inspired, gets motivated by the things that person B is doing. And rather than always relying on, it's nice having person Bs in your life. We should all be able to have person Bs where they're better than you, and maybe they're funnier than you, they're smarter than you, they're more fit than you. It's nice having people better than you in certain domains because it always continues to challenge you, and you don't feel like that you're going to be stagnant and that you're always better than all your friends. Anyway, though, person A, if person A was able to adopt that third person perspective, the way that he sees person B, but rather the way that he sees person B is the way that he sees himself, which is person A. And he essentially takes himself out of his body and he looks at himself the way that he looks at person B. And if you're able to do that, you're able to look at yourself as if you were somebody else looking at you, using that as motivation and determination and everything, it's completely changes the game in terms of discipline and momentum and motivation and anything that you want to call it on a day-to-day basis, because there's always going to be those times where you don't feel like doing something. You don't want to do it. This is the last thing I want to do right now. But if you can pull yourself out of your body and look at that and be like, you know what? I've been doing a really good job lately. I've been going to the gym almost every day this week. I've been eating the foods that I need to be eating, that my body craves. I've been talking to the right people. I've been staying away from my bad habits. On a day-to-day basis, our emotions, they don't see that. They don't recognize that. They don't give you that pat on the back. But if you're able to take yourself out of your body, take yourself out of your shoes, and look at yourself from that third-person perspective, and you see all the good things that you're doing, you don't need the David Goggins book or motivational quote. You don't need to listen to that podcast all the time to give you that spark, to give you that energy, to give you that motivation. It's a reaffirming positive loop where if you can do the right things and you do them on a day-to-day basis, especially when you don't feel like doing it, and you can take yourself out of your body, you can look at yourself from that third-person perspective, it is so reaffirming, and that's what builds momentum for a lot of these things that are hard to do, any of these task habits, principles that you want to make better about yourself, but you have a hard time grasping them, and you have a hard time sticking with them. If you can take yourself out of your body, look at yourself as if you were somebody else, and use that as your fuel, use that as your sort of source of motivation and the way that you go about your life. You don't need to be looking at other people and what they're doing. It's still fine to do. That's going to add on top of the motivation and the momentum and the energy that you're going to get, because that's not going to take away from looking at quotes or hearing a certain song and giving you the goosebumps and hearing a certain message. That's still going to fire you up. But the point is you can't always rely on that. You can't only rely on that. You have to be able to have that internally, and the way that you get that internally is by having that third-person perspective And when you're able to do that, you don't necessarily need all these other external sources. You can rely on your internal sources. And the third person perspective has been a huge thing for me, because especially getting rid of my bad habit with video games and other habits, staying up late and other things like that, trying to get away from that. Beating an addiction is not just a one-time thing, it's a day-to-day thing, and you have to continually show up for yourself. But when you continually try to transform who you are and the person that you see in the mirror, you need that extra oomph, that extra push, and having that person look over your shoulder, as in yourself. You look at yourself in the mirror, or, hey, I don't feel like going to the gym today. But you take yourself out of your body, you remove yourself from your body, that third person perspective. Dude, I've been doing this, I've been doing that. Let's go, let's continue to get after it. I love being able to implement that third person perspective. I do it on a day-to-day basis, regardless if I'm in a good mood, bad mood, if I want to do all the things I want to do, if I don't want to do the things I want to do. If you struggle with getting out of bed, if you struggle with finding a purpose, struggle with figuring out what you need to be doing with your time, the person you want to become, take yourself out of your body a little bit. It can be a good and a bad thing. Third person perspective. Wow, I've really been doing all those bad traits, bad habits. Is that really the person I want to be? That's how other people see me. That's how they perceive me. But when you're yourself, you don't necessarily think that, because you always take care of other people better than you take care of yourself. And it needs to be flip-flop, but that's just how the brain works. We always want to get other people gifts. We want to take care of themselves and feed them good food and take care of them. But when it comes to us, we always put ourselves last. If we're able to have that third person perspective, that completely flip-flops it, that shifts the momentum, and you're able to place the emphasis on you, which, how are you supposed to help other people and improve them and make them better people when you're not even improving and bettering yourself? So I think if you are struggling to gain traction in your life, to figure out where you want to go, to have the right habits, to have the momentum, and to have this never-ending motivation, which nobody ever has, but to always have this fire lit inside of you, try the third person perspective. Look at yourself from somebody else's shoes, from, like in a video game, from Fortnite or whatever, third person perspective, where you're behind the person, and watch your movements like other people would. Are they good? Are they bad? Are they okay? What can you improve on? And it's going to give you this holistic image, this holistic representation of who you actually are and what you represent and how you're actually going to perceive yourself, because you have this rose-colored glasses on when you're just staying in the first person. But when you can look in the third person, it's going to express a lot more of a truthful image of what you represent and what your priorities are. And I think third person perspective can help a tremendous amount of people, and I think you should give it a try.